Hey there, Colleen Patrick-Goudreau here, animal advocate, author, podcaster, opinionator. I have opinions. So I'm really excited to announce, if you haven't heard yet, that Oakland, California, is one of the latest cities to ban wild and exotic animals in performance. Now, this is very exciting and it's been a long time coming. So if you're thinking, wait, I thought that was already done. Well, here are some facts. And this is the topic of my newest article for Live Kindly. And I really hope you go read the article and not just listen to me talk about it, because it's super, super exciting. And I love this history. So back in 2014, Oakland City Council took up an ordinance to ban the bullhook. And that's this weapon that's used to control elephants in zoos, in circuses, in any kind of performance, because elephants are massive animals and have their own will and autonomy, and they don't want to be controlled. And so in order to do it, you have to use a weapon. And so Los Angeles had already passed their bullhook ban, and Oakland followed just on the heels of it. And so at the city council meeting this night was a dramatic, crazy night that went into like 1 o'clock in the morning. And Feld Entertainment, who's the owner of Ringling Brothers, showed up, threw a bunch of money at it with their top lawyers and tried to oppose this ban and make it fail. And they did the same in Los Angeles. And what was happening was there were cities all around the country that were starting to come up with these municipal bans, specifically about the bullhook, specifically of the bullhook. And so they lost. The city council passed the ban just like they did in Los Angeles. And what Feld realized was that they were going to have to fight this legislation municipality by municipality by municipality, and it was going to get very expensive. And so they thought, okay, well, since we can't use bullhooks, in this case in Oakland and LA, and it's going to happen in all these other cities, we'll just take elephants out of the circus, because if we can't control them and fight them off and use this weapon against them, then we can't have elephants, because there's really no other way to control them except to hurt them. And so they took elephants out of the circus. It wasn't a year later when it turned out that elephants were the cash cow in the circus, and they weren't making the kind of money that they needed to make to sustain themselves. And so Ringling Brothers shut down, closed for good after a century or more of exploiting and hurting and just horrible things to exotic and wild animals. And it was fantastic news. And so what happened, though, is with Ringling closing, that's fantastic. But of course, there are other traveling shows. There are other circuses as well. And so lots of municipalities, and we tried to get Oakland to be one of the first to do this because it was so obvious, since they were the ones that kind of toppled everything in the first place. Cities all around the country and around the world, the countries around the world and cities around the country here in the United States started banning all animal acts, wild and exotic animal acts, completely, to fill in that gap, to close that loophole that to make sure that other performing animal acts wouldn't be able to fill the gap left by Ringling. And so cities around the country started closing animal acts and making them illegal. And Oakland just became one of those cities. And one of the reasons I think this is just it's such an important story to tell and retell. And it's why some of you have heard me say this before. You've heard me tell this story on my podcast on Food for Thought. You have I just think it's so important, and here's why. And that's why I wrote this article for Live Kindly. Because in Oakland specifically, I just find it really poignant, because Jack London, who is one of our beloved sons in Oakland, Jack London, the author who wrote White Fang, who wrote Call the Wild, he was born in San Francisco and he lived in Oakland for a time, and he is celebrated. I mean, down our one of our areas is called Jack London Square. He's celebrated in Sonoma County, where his estate was called. It's now Jack London State Park. And he was opposed to animal acts. And he even wrote 2 novels specifically to oppose and to spread the word to the general public and to motivate the general public to oppose wild animal acts. And so what started happening was, because of his opposition, and he was hugely popular, he was calling on people to write letters to the editor, to go to circuses, but when the animal acts came out, to leave, to tell the circus that they do not agree with animal acts. And Ringling listened, and they took animals out of the circus altogether. And this lasted for 5 years. They said, there's a quote from Charles Ringling, and he said that they were taking animals out of the circus for good. However, the Depression hit in the 20s, and animals were brought back for cheap entertainment. And so the fact that now 100 years later in Oakland, to ban circuses, to ban wild and and exotic animals in performance, to make it illegal completely, it just feels really special. And I feel like Jack London would be very proud of that, because what happened was there were all these Jack London clubs that grew up all around his opposition to the circus. And also, I think it's an important story for a couple other reasons. Number 2, 3, I don't know where I'm at, but what I think is also important is that here's an example of a man who used his fame, who used his skills, who used his vocation to speak for animals. And it's just a testament to wherever you are and whatever you do and whatever career you're in, you can use your skills and you can use your passion and you can use the place you're in and the audience you already have built in to speak for animals and to do what you think is right for animals. The other thing I think is really important is it just goes to show, okay, there's 2 more things I think are really important. One is that it really goes to show how municipal legislation can impact a commercial entity. It could impact national politics as well. And so don't ever think that even if it's just a welfare ban or it's just one component of animal exploitation or violence, that it's not worth doing, because why don't we ban the whole thing? If we went into the city council and said, let's make circuses illegal, they would say, get out of here. Because there were issues around the union workers who worked at the Coliseum. There are issues around contracts and money, and there just are. So you could disagree with that and think it's bogus, but that's just the way it is. And so to be able to chip away at some of these things, welfare component by welfare component sometimes really does make sense. And here's a perfect example of that. It killed the circus, and I love that. And I think the other thing I just want to say is that for all of you who feel discouraged or outraged by what's happening on the national stage in whatever country you're in, there's lots of drama happening all around the world. There always has been and there always will be. My point is, getting involved locally is really empowering. Your voice is so not just important and needed, but actually heard. If you try to have a voice on the national stage, good luck with that. Definitely contact your senators, in Congress, absolutely, and your representatives in Congress, absolutely do that. But there is a point at which it's really like there's only so much you can do. And I really encourage you to get involved locally. Know who your city council members are. Know who your board of supervisors are, whatever kind of infrastructure you have in the town you live in. Get to know them. We walk into, because we have, we've just been engaged citizens for a long time, but we also have the East Bay Animal Pack here in Oakland. We walk into a room where the mayor is, where city council members are, where people who have influence are, and they know our name, and they know that we're the animal people. And it feels really good, and it's really empowering. You can make a difference wherever you are. As I always say, it's not that you can make a difference, it's that you do make a difference. And the choice you have is whether you want to have a positive difference or a negative difference. Those are our only 2 choices. But if you don't get involved, you can't have a positive difference at all. So get involved. Go check out the article at Live Kindly. Read it, share it, spread the word, use it as inspiration. And I'll tell you this too, the Animal Legal Defense Fund is actually running workshops. There are webinars online. They're going to probably be doing these ongoing, specifically to help people get involved locally with their city councils to make wild and exotic animal acts illegal. So if you don't know where to start, certainly check out the East Bay Animal Pack and support us, help us make a difference for animals here locally, but also check out Animal Legal Defense Fund and see if you can get on that webinar to learn how to do this in your own municipality. So I just wanted to share that with you. I hope you enjoy the article. Please share it. Please let me know what you think. For the animals, this is Colleen, Patrick-Goudreau. Thanks for watching.